Get out your barf bags, everybody. This is going to be a tough night here on the Warchant Gameday Postgame call-in show, and it is built by T-Spark Enterprises, Roofing and Construction Services. He's Gene Williams. My name is Tom Lang, and it is not a pleasant place to be tonight in Tallahassee, Florida, as Florida State drops to 0-2 in the most disgusting of manners. Unprepared again, it would appear, without a plan, without a whole lot of toughness, without the ability to stop the run. If you thought it was rock bottom after Georgia Tech, no, Florida State hasn't defined what rock bottom is. We talk about the climb here in Tallahassee, but you cannot climb when you're still falling. And Florida State is still falling in this moment as they're 0-2. And we're going to be talking about that tonight here on the Warchant Gameday Postgame Call-In Show. We're going to turn it over to your calls very soon because tonight's for you. Tonight is your night to vent, just like Gene and I are about to do over the next 10 or 15 minutes. But we want to hear from you. And we're going to put that phone number up on the screen here very shortly. But point blank, Florida State is not a very good football team. The camp that we watched where it was competitive in the trenches, maybe we were assuming a little bit too much about how good that defensive line was because the offensive line looked pretty good in camp. Mike Norvell, again, relative to competition, Mike Norvell talked about this offensive line as the best that he's had in Tallahassee. We don't see that, do we? We talked about this defensive line. Pete Thamel had a report on ESPN's College Game Day last week talking about how Florida State's defensive line may be the most sought after in the NFL draft, according to multiple NFL scouts. And scouts were here in droves throughout camp, and they came back. It's not like they came to Tallahassee one time, turned around, never came back again. They came here to take a look at potential NFL talent. We don't see it. Nick Saban called this a top 5 roster after taking a look at it in Dublin. We don't see that either. All we see is a big fat 0 in the win column. Florida State 0-2, losing to Georgia Tech, losing to Boston College. There is no climb for Florida State is falling right now, and we'll see how far Florida State has fallen from when they had a 0 in the other side of the win and loss column last year, 12-0, 13-0, including the ACC Championship. Gene Williams, founder, administrator of Warchant.com. Your thoughts, it's probably very cut and dry, but your thoughts on a night where we're redefining how quickly one can fall, Gene, from the pinnacle of power football to whatever this is this year, because we don't even know the half of it at this point, I feel. Go ahead.
No, they suck. I mean, that's succinctly that's what it is. And this is worse than last week because I really thought legitimately, look, they just laid an egg. We've seen that stuff happen in football before. They were on the road, obviously really on the road, going to Dublin. First game, weird stuff happens. Georgia Tech, we thought was, heck, they just had a great game plan. It's just one of those things. No, this is just a bad team. And it'd be one thing, Tom, if you could point to one thing. The quarterback play is bad. Okay, well, that's something you can work on, maybe substitute. Well, no, the offensive line's getting dominated. Well, then what about the defense? Like you said, there are a lot, and they said it during the broadcast, there's a lot of supposedly, and I'm saying supposed now, NFL prospects on the defense. Doesn't look like it. I mean, that defensive front getting pushed around left and right by these guys in the second week in a row this has happened. And then the loss of composure. Obviously, there's no leadership. I mean, I know that's a generic term that goes around. But when you see a team, anything goes wrong with this team, they completely lose composure. You got penalties going all over. Guys start dropping balls left and right. Just poor decisions. And you see some really dumbass penalties in the second half. And they still very much had a chance to come back in the game on the kick return. Having that was at who did that, the push in the back, and then it was Ferguson at the end of the game.
Yep,
Turner. Doing that push too. And the guy flopped. Yeah. The guy flopped, but why even go up to him in the first place?
Yeah,
to do that. Just stuff like that by guys. I mean, there's absolutely no leadership on this team, and even going to Norvell. I mean, some of the stuff he's done in this game when he went for that fourth down.
Yep.
That one time, it was a one-score game, and it was complete panic and desperation on his part. Look, I get he's young, and I've made a couple excuses for him. That was like, he looked like he was a rookie Pop Warner coach making those kind of decisions. Inexcusable. And we're gonna see how the season goes. I mean, I don't see anything I can grab onto to say this team's going to improve. You know, the season might end up being all right. It looks like it's going to be this is a Willie Taggart-esque type of team, which is crazy considering what we saw out on the field and what everybody, not just us, the scouts, Nick Saban, everybody thought this team was loaded with talent, which goes, there's something fundamentally wrong with the core. And it may go back to, Tom, a lot of the criticism from fans, and I thought it was overreacting, like continuing to go to the portal and not building up to the high school ranks. It has worked out for Norvell, but sometimes you put a lot of good ingredients into a recipe, man, sometimes you throw them all in, it tastes like crap.
Yeah.
And that's what this looks like here. You put a bunch of ingredients that sounded good on the surface. These guys are not meshing together. There's no leadership, and he doesn't know how to coach them up.
Well, if you're stunned, Gene, and I'm stunned, look at this expression on the head coach's face.
Yeah.
I've never seen this expression on Mike Norvell's face. You know what that looks like? Somebody who doesn't know where they are at 4 a.m. on Bourbon Street. That doesn't look like a head football coach.
He didn't know this was coming. I mean, we didn't see it coming. I get it. We're media. We're not trained in football. We don't go to the scrimmages. We're not in the meetings. So whatever. Call us idiots. I know a lot of people are mad at us because we saw what everybody else saw. They looked pretty good in practice. We didn't think this was an elite team. We thought it was pretty good. But when the head coach is that lost, and you can tell, like you said, that expression, he is completely bumfuzzled, to use a Bowden expression, how bad this team is. He did not see this coming.
No, again, folks, look at this. If you're on the podcast, I'm sorry, but this is a deer in the headlights look that I've never seen. Gene, when they were 0-4, he didn't look like this. This is a man who is stunned.
Yeah.
The miscalculation is off the charts at this point, and he's watching it. It's only a 7-0 game at this point, but he's seeing ghosts. They have to reassess everything from the ground up. And I think, one of the things, Gene, when we got done with the postgame show in Dublin, and I watched that postgame press conference, Mike Norvell's expression, I thought it was a man who's saying to himself, we as a program should be beyond slipping up in a situation like this. I've got to reevaluate. And I think he did some hard thinking and planning and coaching between Dublin and tonight. And to see that turned into really nothing.
That was the result?
That it's gotten worse. That's the expression that Mike Norvell, the weight of the world now, Gene. This is a coaching staff that's paid handsomely. He's paid not 7 figures, but 8 figures. It's a defensive coordinator who's paid $2 million a season. It's a roster that is compensated to a level far beyond Boston College, far beyond Georgia Tech. Everywhere you look, resources, everything. There have been times in the last 10 years when we talk about Florida State's relative resources compared to a Georgia this is Boston College. This is Georgia Tech. You've got more at your fingertips as the head coach, a coordinator, a position coach, a top flight player than these other programs have. And they're wiping the floor with you. And Gene, I got news for you. I didn't know if there's a little thing in the rule book that says that the running back can catch a forward pass. I don't know if you knew that before tonight. But I was taught a lesson just like that defense was multiple freaking times.
Yeah.
That running backs can catch the ball out of the backfield. Gene, we got burned on that 4 times, first of which was a wide open drop.
And Lewis Reddick brought that up, one of the commentators, too. At some point, he's like, well, everything Fuller dials up, they seem to know what's coming, and it's just like every time they would bring the players would be out of position, be coming with pressure, and they would throw a screen to that size of the running back every freaking time, and it was always there. And a couple times DJ Lundy again gets isolated on a running back on a 3rd down play, and I'm just like, we've seen this before. You had all week to look back at last week when this happened, and it's a definition of idiocy. You just keep doing the same thing and getting the same results, expecting something different. That's what's so frustrating, Tom. I see no sign that they can do anything to correct this. They had a whole week to correct this crap, and like you said, I think it's actually gotten worse. I think if they would have played like this against Georgia Tech, they would have lost by 2-3 touchdowns.
It looks like they have never played the sport before in some circumstances. I'm telling you, Gene, if you go out to the IM lots, the tailgate lots before the game, you pluck 11 people off of there, that you put them on Bobby Bowden Field, and you say we're going to play man-to-man on this play. Somebody's closer to the running back from that group of 11 in the IM fields than we had on several plays tonight. The communication, they're confused at the snap routinely. I was watching, they had the command center broadcast on, I think it was ESPN2 or ACC Network, where on the left side of the screen, Gene, you get to see the all 20 or the tight copy of the all 22, the end zone copy.
Yep.
I can count on, I need 4 hands the amount of times that you see miscommunication or a lack of the signals coming in before the snap. It wasn't just those plays where you get burned out of the backfield. How they went from a tightly run ship and operation to where they are now this quickly is unbelievable. And I'm going to hit this button a lot tonight. Look at my man. Mike Norvell has no idea. And Gene, this is stunning because there are certain coaches across the country, might be one down in the southern part of this state, that are about recruiting. They're more about recruiting than they are game day. or they might be about one side of the ball versus the other side of the ball, and they've got to account for their weaknesses. Mike Norvell's strength is about preparation, Gene. Mike Norvell's strength coming into this season has been about preparation, that if he's got anything close to even resources, he's going to give you a great account for what he has on his sideline. They're going to be greater than the sum of their parts. They're going to be prepared. They're going to do the little things. It's the L in the word climb is little things. And little things are situations, Gene. Third down was putrid tonight. Red zone was worse. If it wasn't for your punter and your kicker, I don't even know you scored.
Yeah, they won special teams again, so yay. But yeah, I think Georgia or BC started out 6 of 7 for third downs, and I think every single one was about. There's one that was a 3rd and 2. I think everyone's a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. They kept converting. Most of those were like you said, those little throws out to the running back. And I think FSU started out 1 out of 9, 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
On third downs on their end, so not only you're getting pushed around situationally, you're getting beat on every single key play. It's something we're vetting away, and I do want to hear from the fans because we don't have the answers. The answers other than this team looks awful, and they're not coached up. They're not playing well. I don't know what. These guys, they better keep their NIL money because I don't think these guys thought they were making money in the NFL. Well, they're killing their film right now.
That's the other part of it. In this era, you could say these players are handsomely compensated for what they do, and the return on the investment right now, dear God, they didn't look this bad in camp, but maybe that's because everybody was bad. And so they were
maybe it's all relative. We talk about that in practice.
Yeah,
we talk about that in practice. Sometimes it's tough when they're playing against the other team. Instead, we thought, well, both sides of the ball are pretty good. They were just incredibly mediocre. But even just like you said, the miscommunication, the drops, a lot of the other crap we've seen in the last couple of games, we didn't see in practice. I don't know why, some reason. Again, I think this is just the lack of composure, the lack of leadership. When things start going wrong, they just feed on themselves, and it seems to get worse throughout the game.
Seems like a baseball team without a closer too. You got nothing. You got no help in the bullpen because they put themselves in position several times in third down where somebody's got to go make a play. And before somebody did on offense, it was too late. DJ made a play rolling to his left with a shot down the field, and Kentron makes a couple of plays.
Yeah,
but the ball game is a little bit more out of reach at that point. And look, if you say that, maybe we're overreacting on some little things. Mike Norvell went for it in a situation where you don't go for it in the third quarter unless
ridiculous.
You are totally desperate, unless you are reaching for something and you're hoping for something rather than trying to execute. Because in that moment, Florida State's defense did somewhat neutralize BC.
They're down 1 score, and it's a little over half the game has been played.
Before the half, you had some indications, some signs of a little bit of life, and then that fourth down turns into a pick and a short field. And
that was panic. That was complete panic by him. And a guy who's quoted talking about the fourth down analytics. There's no analytics that tell him he should have gone for it there.
It's somebody who was desperate. And that's exactly what Florida State looked like in certain circumstances. They also, I thought they came out, Gene, in the early going, and they showed more physicality than they did the previous game. Adam Fuller dialed up more blitzes and pressures. So they were trying to do some things differently. But in the end, it's about making a play and getting off the field. Yeah. Somebody has to step up and stand out, and nobody did. And my thing yesterday for everybody who was at Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, which thank you for being there, or if you're at Hotel Indigo this afternoon, again, awesome crowd, thank you for being there. This team has a crisis of confidence, and they needed to see the ball go through the hoop, and it just did not. It was not.
An air ball.
No, another one, and and they're going to have to sit on this. We're all going to have to sit on this for a damn bye week. Good freaking Lord. And then Mike's old school Memphis coming to town. I don't know. We're going to get to your calls here in just a second. But if you're somebody who's on the line pushing for a youth movement, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, well, I'm glad, but we're going to get asked. I've seen it in the chat. We see all in the chat. I appreciate everybody interacting on there. We're going to get to some of you as well on there. And it's sort of, you heard the chant during the game, Tom.
Yeah.
We want Brock. Now, to me, there are much, much bigger problems in quarterback play. Quarterback play was awful too. I can't make an excuse for him, but it's one of those things you have to change something. There's something fundamentally wrong. If it's a leadership thing with DJ, I don't know, but maybe it is. I mean, they don't seem to want to play for him. They don't seem to want to block very well for him, and they seem completely miscombobulated. So why not? At this point, what do you have to lose? I mean, there's no way this season is going to go well if they just do the same thing. There's no way the season's going to go well. You have to massively shake up some things here, and I think that starts with quarterback. So I think it's got to be considered going into the bye week.
Here we go, Gene. It's time to go to the phone lines. You agree?
Yep, let's do it.
We're going to he's part of the family. He's part of the Ohana here. It's Ralph, Spartan 71. He's out in Hawaii. where at least there's sunlight out there, because you you need a little bit of something for optimism. But Ralph, welcome to the program. Go ahead.
Aloha, can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
We got you, Ralph.
Okay, I'm in my truck. I just wanted to make sure. I don't want to overreact, although I've had quite a few already. First of all, I did not get to call in I was on hold for 30 minutes last week, and the phone line didn't work. So what an awesome trip to Dublin, regardless of score. At what point in time do we say, DJ, I'm glad you transferred in, but goddamn, you can't hit a barn trapped inside?
Yeah, it's a choice they made because they thought, Ralph, that this was a season where you're a couple of pieces away from the playoff. That's why you bring in DJU and you don't go youth movement at that point. But at 0-2, and not just 0-2, but 0-2 in conference. I mean, yes, it could be time. It could be time to make a change.
Because we're almost at the point. You can't believe that 2 games in, we're September 2nd, but you might be looking to 2025.
Yeah, exactly.
At this point, so like you said, Ralph, I mean, maybe if you're going to do it with a bye week coming up, you're going to look at, Glenn, and maybe Cromenhawk gets in there some down the stretch. Maybe you need to start looking at that.
Your follow-up question, Ralph, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, before you guys hang up, a serious question. How many transfers in that take a starting position do you determine your program's in trouble? Because we have 7.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's a fair question, and I appreciate it, Ralph. Thanks for the call, and we hope to hear from you in better times after the Memphis game, which every game looks difficult right now. That's a tough one, Gene, because when you lose as much to the NFL as Florida State did, and obviously I know what he's getting at with high school development, but sometimes you need to bridge, and Florida State is grateful that the portal existed in the first place because it sped up the process. Because of COVID, you were unable to get that first, second year recruiting class with the newness of with the new regime, because you couldn't fortify those relationships. You couldn't form the relationships, period. So that's why the portal became critical for Florida State, to get them out of the gutter and to a place where they win 10 games in 13 in back-to-back years. And now you ask yourself, where are the reserves? Where's the help coming from? Because these frontline guys, it's rough. There are no easy answers at this point, Gene.
But I mean, you had a bunch of transfers start last year too, and it worked. Right. I mean, I think that's the point. When you put you're rolling the dice when you bring in a bunch of transfers. Will they mesh? Will they buy into the system? Can they be coached up? When you get Braden Fisk and Verse and guys like that, and they work out real well in your system, and for whatever reason, this group obviously they're not meshing together at all. They're not taking there's no leadership. Mike Norvell obviously doesn't have a handle on how to coach him right now. So, yeah, that's a good point. You don't have that issue, I think, when you're bringing guys up through the high school ranks. So it's been a point where a lot of people have been critical. We're seeing its rear its ugly head. It did in the last couple of years, but it definitely is so far this year.
Tom in Port Charlotte is next up here on the Warchant Gameday Postgame call-in show, built by T-Spark Enterprises. Go ahead, Tom.
Hey, Tom. I have to agree with the last caller. I don't know how the hell you can go out with DJU in the second half. That's just pathetic. I question everything about Norvell as our head coach now. The play call in the first half, try to get the run game going. You know what I mean? You can't put that much pressure on DJ. Obviously, there's something horribly wrong. Ford is not Florida State caliber. I'm disgusted. I got a question for Gene. Are you guys going to actually ask critical questions of Norvell?
Tell us what you want to ask him, but we're not, we ask questions and you don't like the answers, you're going to get coach speak. I mean, that's what all coaches do. A lot of times we'll ask a question that's critical of something they do, and they come back and they give you coach speak. It's not a cross-examination. We can't force them to answer. But we will, we'll do our best. We do our jobs like everybody else, and we'll try to get some answers from Mike Norvell. But, we'll have the press conference up here soon. You can see what he says.
Yeah, agreed, Gene. Usually there's coach speak for an answer. Mike does a good job of owning things in these moments. And and he's got no choice but to own.
They want us to be mad at him and get up and yell at him and stuff and say, why don't you fire Fuller and stuff. I mean, that's just – nobody does that in the NFL. Nobody does that in college teams. I get the frustration. I mean, I understand. Tom, you're right. I get it. I get how angry you are. I'm angry. I know thousands of fans are angry. But getting mad at the coach and berating him to his face is not going to do anything to solve the issue.
What will be interesting is, even when this game was in touch, Gene, you saw some younger players make it out on the field.
Yeah.
I saw, obviously Cam Davis went out there again. Landon Thomas did. Quindarius Jones, Edwin Joseph, Blake Nicholson already had a large role in this game. But I wonder if that's not a signal of things to come. Whether Mike Norvell is just going to decide to pivot, but he's got a lot of time to think about that now. He's got some media obligations today. They're going to take a little break. Then we'll see what their practice schedule is for the bye week. But important decisions are going to be made in the coming weeks here for Florida State.
It's interesting. The bye week, we have to sit and stew in this for a while, but it also really gives Mike Norvell and the staff the opportunity to go back to the drawing board and figure out, like you said, what are they going to do? Do they just, do they make a switch at quarterback? Do they say, look, we're just going to start getting this team ready for 2025? Or are they just going to think there's some way to rehabilitate DJ and this team where they can somehow have a viable season so they still believe that's possible? I don't think it is, just because I don't see any way they're going to have a good season. I don't see them making a bowl at this point.
You're poking them with a stick and they're not moving. That's where they are right now. And look, if this was a season opener against an LSU and then one conference game, you might stick with it because you have one loss in conference, but you can come back from that. I don't know, man. Charlotte making it to Charlotte. I think that's off the table at this point.
Yep.
Marlon in Miami is next up. We talked to him last year in headier times in November of 2023. It seems like a long time ago. Marlon, go ahead.
Hey guys, thank you for taking my call. I know this is it's ugly, but I'm gonna get straight to the point. And a lot of people have been talking that you guys lied, but the biggest lie of them all was Coach Norvell, and I'm gonna hit him because he told us that this was his best offensive line that he's had since he's been coaching here. So somebody needs to be accountable, either him or Atkins, because what I've seen the last two games from this offensive line has been nothing but going backwards. Backwards last year, we couldn't run the ball. This year, I know the kid is not the best quarterback ever, but do you really want to put Brock in with that offensive line? It's not going to get any better. I'm sorry. I know everybody wants to see everybody loves the backup quarterback when the quarterback's not doing good, but the offensive line is the problem. And then the defensive line, NFL, maybe XFL, maybe at best XFL. But that offensive line coach needs to be accountable for that line because he went on national TV and told us this was his best offensive line. So it's either him or Atkins. Somebody needs to be held accountable.
Yeah, it's a good call, Marlon. We appreciate the call and the sentiments there. Yeah, that's something. I mean, we're going to hear a lot about it, and that's fine. Kool-Aid Maker says, Warchant, y'all some liars. Appreciate
Thanks for the donation.
But, I mean, that's the thing. Okay, if you're going to line us up as a liar, then line us up next to the head coach who said
line up Nick Saban. He apparently doesn't know how to evaluate talent anymore either.
And that's fine. Like, he told us that, as Marlon is saying, that Darius Washington is a first-team All-American left tackle, and Darius got abused.
And that first play that got messed up, one guy just beat his ass. I think the Senate with Brock, I don't think it's so much. Look, there's bigger problems in DJ. It's absolutely true. And the offensive line had its share of issues, both pass blocking and obviously run blocking. But the thing is, some fundamental changes need to be made. If you keep rolling out what you got, you're going to get the same result.
Yeah, agreed. Florida Man in Alabama, thank you for the contribution. Going to be a long season, boys. Hashtag shop on. On a side note, Tom and Gene should probably ignore the chat for a while outside of Super Chat.
I'm amused by the chat.
It's fun. To the 9,000 plus of you that are hate watching, doom scrolling, just looking for some sort of a little session together, a group therapy session. We appreciate your presence here. For whatever reason that you're here, this is the Warchant Gameday Postgame Call-In Show, and it's built by T-Spark Enterprises. And Florida Man in Alabama, thank you very much for your contribution.
Yep,
a word from our friends at T-Spark Enterprises. If a tree falls on your season, wait a minute, that's not the copy. If a tree falls on your roof during the storm and you have structural damage, T-Spark Enterprises is available to help come inspect that roof. The best part is, With T-Spark, it's one phone call because he can not only fix the roof, but T-Spark is a licensed general contractor. So they can actually take care of structural damage if there's something beyond a leak. If you're suffering from storm damage, T-Spark knows how to work with the insurance companies and help navigate the insurance process to put your home back to pre-claim level. Outstanding work that they do at T-Spark Enterprises. If you live in North Florida, South Georgia, call T-Spark today, 850-766-1340, 850-766-1340, or head to tsparkconstruction.com. We appreciate their support on the post-game show. We're going to get you a win, T-Spark, I promise you. I just don't know when. I can't promise that. We go to, looks like Scott in Tallahassee. Scott in Tallahassee's been waiting patiently. We last talked to him 3 years ago. So usually Scott calls in when times are tough. Go ahead, man.
Hey, thanks, Tom. It's actually Scoop, but I appreciate you taking my call, my friend. So, everybody wants to get on DJU, and I get it. The kid couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, but our trench play is just atrocious. So I guess the question becomes, at what point does Norvell hold any of his, Fuller or either Odell Hagens? We're getting crushed up the middle. At what point does he hold, as a top manager leader, you got to hold your staff accountable, and we're just not doing that. And it's not going to get any better. You can put Tom Brady out there, and if they can't block, and we're constantly getting it run down our throat, I don't even think, has Marvin Jones Jr. made a tackle this year? So I'm just frustrated like everybody else, but I'll listen to your remarks off the air, and I appreciate you taking my call, sir.
Oh, thank you, Scoot. And my apologies to Terry, the call screen.
Yeah.
I thought for sure that might be a typo, but Scoot it is, and we appreciate your call. These are important questions, and I don't know that Mike Norvell in the bye week after 2 games is going to make sweeping changes within his staff. But Gene, I mean, really, that's on the table now. You're talking about position coach changes, coordinator changes. That's where this kind of a season goes really, really fast. And to Tom in Port Charlotte's call a few minutes ago, where he's talking about, he's questioning everything about Mike Norvell. It's tough, Gene, because Mike's built up a ton of equity. I mean, a ton with what he did from 0-4, the speech he made to where they went to 13-0, and they should have been in the Invitational last year. We all know that, but that is one hell of a turnaround when you didn't even have the benefit of being able to build your program out the gate the way that everybody else does because COVID hampered your recruiting capabilities. But I will say, while I don't agree with Tom, a lot of that equity has been spent. A lot of that credit has been spent. This is a disaster, Gene.
And to that point, what's so, like you said, Tom, going 13-0 and having the turnaround that they did, it was with this staff. So that's why it's so hard to wrap my mind around. Well, it's the same staff that went 13-0 last year. It's the same staff that turned them around the year before, and they got 10 wins. I mean, what other than some personnel changes, which we thought were decent, at least would keep the boat going pretty good.
Yep.
Other than that, nothing has really changed. But I know there's a certain position coach on defense. I know you're a compadre in the JCS has been on. I think that's obviously something that has to be looked at. But like you said, nothing's probably going to happen in season. It's not like you can go out and hire another coach somewhere. So, I mean, this is on Mike Norvell. He's got to really – it's probably good he has a bye week now.
Yeah.
He's really got to look in the mirror and meet with his staff. And they have to do a better job, and the players have to do a better job. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I wish we could sit there and tell you it's this. They need to do this with this coach or change this scheme. But when you're getting your ass beat on both sides of the ball, you're losing composure. You have no leadership. Guys can't catch.
Yep.
You're inaccurate. You can't protect them. I mean, everything's bad other than the kicking game. Pretty good kicking game. I mean, but other than that, I don't know what to do. But Norvell, he's getting paid a lot of money, Tom, and he's going to have to earn it now these next couple of weeks.
I'll borrow a phrase that I'm sure Jeff has said at some point in his life. This is comprehensive suck. It's just it's everywhere. It's everywhere you look. I thought the compete level on the defensive line was there a little bit more early on, but it's still Boston College. Get off the field, somebody. And the second level communication is it's been a disaster. Gene, for large stretches of tonight's game, it looked like they'd never played the sport before. How is that possible? How is that possible? That reeks of a major issue in an intangible sense. It's either between the ears with confidence, or it's culture, or it's a disconnect between the coaches and the players where the communication, the teaching is not landing. But it can't be about talent. It cannot be about talent because combine-wise, you've got some athletes on this team. But football-wise, you don't have many players on this team at this moment.
Yeah, there's something systemically wrong with the program right now. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's something from top to bottom. Something is very messed up going on with this team right now. And, this could be, I think it will be, if it goes the way it's looking right now, this will probably be the most disappointing season in FSU history. Is that hyperbole or do you think that's accurate? Let's say they end up being a 3-win team, Tom, with the preseason expectations of what happened last season. I mean, you rarely see a team completely do a 180 the way the trajectory this team is on right now.
It's stunning. It really is. And Z-Chan, thank you very much for the contribution. We need some help.
Favorite Dennis, man. Yeah, they need some help.
The official DMD of Warchant TV. Curious to see what the bye week does for us. Me too. Put the whole offense on notice. It was a pleasure to see you, Z-Chan, today at Hotel Indigo. Hope things continue to go well for y'all. Gene, it's there's no easy path out of where Florida State is right now. And you're right. Against preseason expectations, like NFL scouts didn't come to practice. Sometimes we can talk with those guys in a brief moment, and you might, your eyebrows might be raised by what they say and what they think, or in a press box setting. There were whispers that well, this team is complete garbage. Florida State's coaching staff or people connected to the program didn't leak word out that, we might have some problems. I mean, they thought they were going to be good.
Yeah, people I talked to off the record, you're right, would say the same things. We saw what people coming in. It was 4 years ago. You didn't even see the scouts coming, Tom.
Right.
I mean, they're coming here for a reason.
And they won't be for a reason.
Yeah, they might be gone. We might not see them anymore.
Because the game film speaks more than the practice stuff. And clearly, when the spotlight came on, they didn't have anything. And now they've got a crisis. That has to be. I mean, I can't even imagine some of the meetings that Mike Norvell is going to have in the next week. I mean, from a player standpoint with his staff, this is, I hope you got a lot of sleep the last, few weeks, Mike, because there's not a whole lot ahead. This is why they pay you over $10 million to be the head coach of a program. And we're going to hear a lot about that and salaries and things of that nature here because that's what happens when you disappoint. Rampage is his name. We're going to Port Charlotte for Rampage. Okay, let's see what we got here. Rampage, go ahead.
Hey, Tom, Gene, listen, a couple of quick things, but the first thing is the coaching staff. I mean, we've got to make some major changes, especially on the defensive side. Fuller really hasn't ever measured up to his expectations, and it's just a pure miracle that the talent on the defensive side has been able to mask, his inequities. But I'm also going to give you a little inside pick here. There's a lot of reasons why a lot of these prospects or these kids in high school don't come to FSU. A lot of it has to do with how Mike Norvell uses the transfer portal. These kids, if they commit to FSU and the way that he uses the transfer portal could be a determining factor on why some of these kids aren't going to Florida State. They might be going to Alabama or other places. And I think he needs to get these young kids involved in this program early on to show these high school kids that, hey, you have an opportunity to show out here at FSU. So as an alumni, somebody that was there through 90 and 93, and my son's up there right now, it's disappointing to see this kickoff to the season after what we went through last year. But I appreciate the time. You guys keep doing what you're doing. Go Noles, and I'm still looking forward to a good season.
There we go. Great call, Rampage. Thank you very much. Didn't know what to expect with that kind of a moniker, Gene, but well-reasoned. And, look, I agree. You started to see some of that tonight. Some of those younger players were phasing in when the game was in touch. It wasn't in total garbage time. Florida State was within a couple of scores. And defensively, specifically, you're starting to see some young players make their way onto the field. Amen to that, I say, at this point, Gene. I mean, you've seen plenty from highly paid, highly compensated veterans. If you've got younger players who are giving you more consistency or you like what they're doing in the meeting rooms, get them the development that they need at this point because I think you're playing the long game here. I think the battle that's in front of us about a playoff run in 24 is dead now. It's done.
Yeah. And to Rampage, look, there's always that dilemma when you have transfers involved because it will, in theory, might scare away recruits because you're going to try to develop some guys coming, you bring in a linebacker or whatever. Said, well, all they're going to do is bring in another transfer. and I have to sit there and wait. They're not going to give me my chance. But at the same point, Georgia had a massive number of transfers this year, didn't they, Tom? I know I heard the number when that game was on the other day. So, I mean, somehow there's a lot of these big, other than Clemson, a lot of these very highly successful teams are able to bring in a lot of transfers. But to his point, obviously FSU has underachieved when it comes to bringing in recruits as well. So, I mean, they've got to find that balance. They haven't done that. And, again, coaching changes will not happen until probably after the season. But obviously, if this continues the way it looks, yeah, there's going to be a shakeup in the staff. And who knows? It may include Adam Fuller. I don't know at this point.
Well, I mean, when you bring in, and in no particular order, but the Alabama kids and DJU and Marvin Jones and Lola Haya and Durajaye and Cam Riley and Devontae Brown. I mean, it's Earl Little,
Yeah.
and he's one of the Alabama kids, Jalen Brown. When you bring in all those guys, most of them, with the exception of Jalen Brown, Gene, are all vets. Like, this is either their money year or they're an upperclassman. When you do that, you signal to the world, DJU being the biggest signal, that you believe you're close. And all you are is just a couple of pieces away to go back on that run. And the miscalculation here has been across the board because they're not close. I mean, they're not even in the solar system of close at this point. And it's alarming because also, Gene, it's contagious. And I think that's what Josh is going to get to here. He's one of our most valued callers in the postgame show for the 48th time on Warchant TV. We go to Josh in Long Island. Go ahead, Josh. I think you're going to hit on something that I want to talk about here. So go ahead.
Well, where do I begin? This is probably the most scary thing, I think, is that like the thing that has to be protected more than anything else, and this is just coming from a coaching standpoint, more than wins is the culture of the team. I like the penalties, the personal foul by Turner and the personal foul by Cage. Like that gave me Willie Taggart vibes, and I was not happy about. I was terrified that this was happening. And that is something I think whoever has the best culture, like whoever exudes that type of characteristic should be playing. I don't even care if they can throw, can't catch, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, that's something that will get Mike fired if he ends up having a bad culture. Not this year. I'm not one of those crazy fans that say this year. Talking about in like 2 years, 3 years. If you have a bad culture, that will get you fired. So I think more than anything else, you have to protect the culture of the team. Doesn't matter who plays. Those are the people that have to be playing, are the ones that have the best culture. That's just my advice. Whether Mike listens to this show, I hope he does. But I'm sure he's smart enough to understand that as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Always bringing wisdom is Coach Josh. I should call him Coach because he sent some players down here to play for Florida State basketball over the years from his connections up in Long Island. But that's the point I was wanting Josh to drive home on, and I saw it on the show notes. So thank you, Screener Terry, for that. But this is an important moment for the culture of the team, Gene. It's already very difficult when you're working the portal and also in the NIL era, that when you lose to retain culture. But Mike Norvell walked that fine line, that tightrope, extremely well, Gene, early in his career when he's bringing in guys from the portal. And some of them are, quote-unquote, mercenary types. They're one-and-done type players and that they bring in, but everybody held together. Winning does that, but also there's something more there, that Mike Norvell had guys buy into what he was pitching when they were 0-4 just a few years ago, and they stayed with the program, literally, didn't transfer out here for multiple years, and they saw it through. So there's effective messaging that has been done in Mike Norvell's past, but you're in a really precarious moment right now where it's already spiraling out of control. It already is kind of out of control, but it can get bad. It can get worse than a bad season if you're not careful here.
Yeah, but to Josh's point about the culture, what I am so stunned about, even back when they were not very good early on in Mike Norvell's early tenure, you immediately got away from what we saw tonight. We got away from the Willie Taggart, the loss of composures, the silly penalties, just guys being completely lost out there and not being coached up. And I don't know, the staff has stayed the same. Some of the personnel obviously changed some of the transfers, but how could they get it so wrong?
Yeah.
And how could this culture go from where it's been the last few years to this? It's stunning because there's just, it'd be one thing, okay, a bunch of coaches came in and changed, something, but I mean, you would think the system is in place for, what he's had in the past. Maybe they're not as good, but, they're going to have that culture there. But this is nothing like the culture we've seen the last few years.
So to reset for everybody who's joining us here, nearly 10,000 of you here watching on Warchant TV. We appreciate the support for whatever reason. I believe there was somebody who said they're here hate watching.
There's definitely a lot of schadenfreude going on right now.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's why college football hits a little bit different. Here we go. Yeah. I'm 100% hate watching, but I was not expecting the lack of run game from Florida State. Hard to win without a run game. Okay.
Yeah.
So thanks for the hate watch. Thanks for the support too. That's a cool looking little, logo that you got there. That's cool artwork. But Gene, at halftime, Mike Norvell said we have to establish the run game. And I get that Boston College was stacking, and obviously they wanted to dare Florida State to throw. Safeties were down near the line of scrimmage. I get it. That's the playbook that Georgia Tech put out there that Florida State was going to have to execute upon. And I'm also aware that there were RPOs, and DJU kept the ball and made some throws early in this game where perhaps a run is the more viable play. All of that said, Gene, at halftime, do you know how many times Florida State handed the ball off to a running back through 2 quarters?
Well, I know they had 16 total rushing attempts and probably less than, I'm sure it's probably about 9 for the game, but how many total at half?
So at halftime, there were 8 runs, 21 passes, 2 runs to the running backs.
Wow.
2 runs, 1 for Cam Davis, 1 for Roydell Williams. That's it. And this was a team that was built around being able to run the ball behind an offensive line that is better than, according to Mike Norvell, better than any other offensive line he's had. And they were pretty damn good 2 years ago at running the football. That offensive line paved the way 2 years ago to exceptional numbers for both Trayshawn Ward, who had a night tonight, and Trey Benson, who had a lot of good nights for Florida State in his career, especially a couple of years ago. They were able to run the ball almost at will with counter. And tonight, they threw the ball left and right, and they did throw the ball down the field a little bit more. But, Gene, even when they were starting to move it before halftime and getting in rhythm on those drives, there were finally some neutralized fronts, and they decided to keep on throwing the football. So the identity that you thought you had before Georgia Tech, it's not there. Defensively, they don't know what they're doing at all. Linebackers continue to be a problem. Safety help continues to be a problem. The communication's late. They're getting blown off the ball. Like, this is a comprehensive nightmare. To reset for everybody who's just here, in case you didn't watch it, for whatever reason, and you decided to tune into us and not watch the Florida State football game, they have the most serious of problems, Gene. It's across the board, except for punter and kicker.
Yes. Kicking game is very solid, so we can hang our hat on that. But no, I made the stat in the last game after that first series when they went down the field and scored against Georgia Tech in the opener. They averaged 1.4 yards per carry. Today, 1.3 yards per carry. And I think you made a good point there, Tom, because you noticed that when every time they were throwing, they knew they were going to throw. I mean, Florida State became one-dimensional, even when it didn't have to be one-dimensional. It continued to do that, and you make it so hard on your offense with a struggling offensive line, a quarterback that's erratic, and that's all happening, and you're letting the defense just sit back and know what you're going to do every play. And it doesn't help that Kyle Morlock had a nightmare game and unable to catch the ball all night too. I mean, there's a time you got to know when your quarterback and your offense is struggling, man, that's the last thing you can do is drop. Both times he had first downs on those 2 plays.
It's a conspiracy of incompetence. Everybody took a turn tonight. Everybody took a turn, and it was just what it was, which was awful. And you didn't think it could get worse than Georgia Tech? It did. It got worse tonight, and I don't know that we're done yet with the bad news. And that sucks because it's fun to do these post-game shows after a win, but you got to tell it like it is. Joshua, we appreciate the contribution. O2 and barbecue. Nice baseball reference. Gents, we are DEFCON 4. Time for the youth movement. I'm not against it, Joshua. I'll be very interested to hear how Mike Norvell messages in his next 3 to 4 press conferences. Like tonight, that's one thing. That's the emotion. That's the taking of the responsibility. But after a period of reflection, and he talks a couple times this week, which you'll be able to catch on Warchant TV, warchant.com, and then first day of game week against Memphis, the words he chooses about youth versus experience are going to be fascinating. I wish we weren't in these circumstances, but I love the question, Joshua. Again, thanks for the contribution. Nick, Fuller needs to go tomorrow. I'm sure the team has a lot of issues, but they weren't good against the run last year and somehow worse this year. At least that's a starting point. Soft all around. You can throw that word out there right now, Gene. I mean, but Boston College for the bulk of this game was between 5 yards a carry and 6 yards a carry. That's what they were averaging. 5 yards a carry, 6 yards a carry. Once they started to pull back the reins a little bit, the number came down. But they were just when they needed to get into third and manageable, they were in third and manageable all day. That's why
they knew at that point they're throwing to the running back who's going to be wide open.
They didn't need to turn Castellanos loose. Like, that's where this was. He made a couple of plays early in the game, but they didn't need him to be the guy he was last year. They decided to do that to ice it, but he really wasn't the thing. It was the standard run game, and we just weren't tough enough to stop it. Justin, hey, fellas, unfortunately sober this week. For the life of me, I don't understand how you don't put Brock in. Also, very concerning, Mike does not have the discipline to stop with the sloppy fourth down calls. You know, this is the thing, Justin, and I think we talked about it last week, Gene, although that was a strange, cold night in Aviva Stadium. I didn't love the process of the fourth down call last week, and they got away with it, and they scored a touchdown on that drive, but a field goal in that situation would have been okay. It wouldn't have been the end of the world when it was 4th and 8 and they completed it to Ja'Kai Douglas. This was the most desperate fourth down attempt he's had since they played, I think, Notre Dame or Louisville in that 0-4 start a few years back. I know you're not a big fan of fourth down in general, so I'm teeing you up here, but man, I think most of the world agrees with you in this situation, Gene, even the analytically inclined.
That's one of the things. Even Mike's always been kind of inconsistent when he does a fourth down. And the times that are the worst, it seems like when he's panicking and he's like, or he's frustrated. He's like, I'm just not going to give the ball back. I just don't understand this. I'm going to just keep doing this. But man, you have to know, you have to read the room at the time. And that fourth down, when it's a one-score game, you got to somewhere worry about your 45-yard line at that point, whatever it was.
Yep.
When he did that one, I mean, pin him down. Like you said, at least the defense looks like it was starting to get its way. You know, pin him down. You're still very much in the game, but man, you force DJ into making that. He was trying to make a play because it's fourth down. He's like, I'm going to throw it, and it picks and goes out. And that really kind of, to me, that was kind of the thing looking back that you just really had the feeling it isn't going to, because that was the first drive, I believe, of the second half, and that's where you set the tone. And that was the tone you set by doing that. I think that was game right there. That was just a horrible decision on his part.
He decided to go all in before he had to. To use a poker analogy, he pushed them all in the middle of the table, and you're like, whoa, already?
And he had 2-7 non-suited or whatever it is, but
that's right, 2-7 7-2 offsuit. Yeah, the worst hand there is. We'll take one more call before taking a break, but if you're in the queue, we're going to be rattling through tonight. Y'all are here, and you're here for a lot of different reasons, but nearly 10,000 of you, and we'll be riding with you here on Warchant Gameday Postgame Call-In Show, built by T-Spark Enterprises. Carson in New York. Let's get to him before we break. Carson, go ahead. Welcome to the program.
Hey, how we doing?
Hey,
We're
Carson.
hanging in as well as we can, Carson.
So not a lot to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
But maybe it's just me, but DJ I don't think was that bad. I mean, made some throws. Obviously, you want to have back, but he at the end of the day put us in a position to maybe win the game. Morlock was terrible. You know, Tofili had a couple drops. You know, and he got no help in the run game, obviously. O-line. A couple of questions. I had two questions. One was, how big of an impact do you think Alex Atkins has? Like, I know the O-line hasn't been very good lately with him not being there. Like, how big of an impact do you think that has?
Well, I would say that you will see the impact when he comes back on the sidelines by game 4 or 5. If there's a marked difference in the aptitude of the offensive line at that point, you'll learn the definition of the value of Alex Atkins to help maybe keep those guys solid in terms of their the mental toughness, staying locked in. But that, I mean, he's there. He's able to do everything in practice. He's able to do everything in game day leading up to the game. He just can't be present for the game. So
yeah, but I mean, we're looking.
He's there.
Right.
I mean, I think that's a good question, Carson, because we're looking for any reason why the offensive line that we thought was so good is just getting pushed around and losing composure during games. I think having the stabilizing influence of Atkins on the sideline in game, it can't hurt. It could definitely help this team. So unfortunately, we've got a couple more games before we'll see that.
Carson, what's your second question? Go ahead.
And then my other question was like, what kind of impact do you think this will have on high school recruiting and also like retaining your own guys like through the portal?
Deleterious. You
Not good.
Yeah, you got some issues. This is what I'm alluding to when I'm saying, Carson, and we appreciate the call. Hope you call back again. When I'm talking about the week ahead for Mike Norvell is about to be really busy. Like that's you're doing damage control on all fronts. Like the media will be the least of his concerns with damage control. You got to deal with families of players in this day and age, especially dealing with families of players, disgruntled players. You got to deal with your coaching staff, a confidence issue for the guys who are engaged, but they just don't understand why the hell they're 0-2 when they felt they were going to be 2-0 and on their way this year. You got damage control. Yeah. High school recruits. You got to take a look at your roster. I mean, you got to start doing some serious work. I would be surprised, not trying to tell him what to do and how to do his job, Gene, but if that car is gone from the stadium, it'll be very briefly gone from the stadium. The outside in Mike Norvell's dedicated parking spot, there is a lot of work to be done and a lot of tough meetings to be had. So, Carson, there is no positive that comes from anything like this in either recruiting or portal stuff.
And it's real quick, Carson, to follow up. Yeah, I've been following recruiting for a long time, and I always think wins and losses are a little bit overrated when it comes to recruiting, but not when you're embarrassed like that on your home field, and especially the recruits. I know C.J. Wiley and there's a couple other pretty highly touted recruits were in here.
Yep.
When you're getting embarrassed like that and you're out-coached and your fans are booing and calling for the backup, it sets a real bad tone. If that continues, it's definitely recruiting is going to take a hit.
Yeah, you're right, Gene. C.J. Wiley saw that today. You can only tell him, hey, look what Kentron did enough. And good job, Kentron. You know, we were asking a receiver to step up, and we saw it, but in the end, it wasn't even close to enough. But there's only so many things you can say before a kid starts looking at you and saying, do you know what you're looking at? Because clearly, again, miscalculation galore here by the head man, what he thought he had versus what he actually does have. We're going to take a brief break here on the Warchant Gameday Postgame Call-In Show. Built by T-Spark Enterprises, a word from T-Spark, and then again, just another 45 seconds to a minute, and we'll be back. So a couple of minutes, we'll be right back. We're going to take more of your calls, and we have some more contributions to the program that we want to say thank you for. He's Gene, I'm Tom. We'll be right back right here on Warchant TV.
Greatness is built through passion, perseverance, and an unyielding commitment to one's trade. It starts with dedication and the relentless pursuit of perfection. The early mornings, the late evenings, the sacrifices made, all for that one moment of knocking it out of the park. On every job we do. T-Spark, we conquer all peaks.
All right, back after that word from T-Spark Enterprises. Let's go back to those phone lines. Gene, it's before I do that, actually, it's so bad tonight, I'm not even drinking. I've got a seltzer water.
No, I'm same thing. Got water tonight, so.
That's how bad it was. Sometimes, like, if it's bad, a normal level of bad or disappointing, you want that liquor or you want that third beer. It's so awful tonight that your guys here are drinking water. We've been loose on this post-game show before. Not tonight. Not tonight. That's got to tell you all you need to know. We go to Navy Nole, who last spoke to us a couple of years ago, late in the season after an Adam Fuller statement game. I remember this call from Navy Nole. We now go to him tonight. Welcome to the program, Navy Nole. What say you?
This might be an Adam Fuller statement game too, huh, fellas?
Yeah, I was wondering if you had to run with it, Navy Nole. It does kind of feel like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to touch on the defense first, but I wanted to go back to what the last caller said about DJU. I don't know if I consider what he did was pretty good. Every receiver was catching, not every receiver, but a lot of those catches downfield were receivers diving to their knees, catching a ball, not being able to get that yak that we want. And I also wanted to say that DJU definitely was a fan of beer after he knocked it out of his hands on that wide open pylon throw to put it couldn't reach after the second quarter ended. But yeah, Tom, I thought you'd hit the nail on the head with that. Throwing the swing pass to the running back. Another one that really bothered me was we had a QB spy the entire game, but it just seemed like every time he was on the wrong side of the hash mark.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the game, they ran that Castellano RPO basically where he had a free run for basically 15 yards to seal the deal for us. Yeah, I hope Adam Fuller can adjust it because I like to think I'm an Adam Fuller truther. But I haven't really seen the adjustments to make ends meet with that.
Yeah, no, it's tough all around, Navy Nolan. And this was, I think, Gene, we talked about this today briefly at Indigo, but you would just love to have seen a pocket passing team this week, after the Georgia Tech debacle and what's on film. Boston College was just going to run it back. That was the crux. I wrote an article for the site, warchant.com. The feature was they're going to retake the exam because, what Boston College was able to do last year, Florida State might have had the flu, but they don't care at BC. They don't care in Chestnut Hill about Florida State having the flu. What Castellanos was able to do, what that offense was able to do successfully, Gene, is very much the same thing that Georgia Tech was able to do this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was put guys in conflict, get them on the wrong side of things, make them, communicate, make them decide, and they chose wrong consistently. So even though they've got a new head coach in Bill O'Brien, who everybody's talking about Bill O'Brien this, Bill O'Brien that, Gene, I don't think he had to do a damn thing tonight. I think he just had to call the most basic of run plays. He didn't have to get creative at all. There's nothing about Bill O'Brien that was special tonight. They just said, hey, let's do what Georgia Tech did last year and see if they're man enough to stop it. And Florida State was not.
Well, that's what Navy Noles bringing up there, too, is why this is disturbing because, like you said, it's basically the same game plan Georgia Tech had. Well, obviously, running the ball effectively, consistently makes a big difference, too, but then hitting the guys in the flat, getting the defense confused. And Fuller had a week to be able to adjust and knew that was coming.
Yep.
And you saw nothing. It was just as bad, if not worse, the next week. So every team that's going to play Florida State's going to continue to employ that game plan, and that's on the defensive staff to pick that up. Now, it doesn't help when the offense goes 3 and out all the time. So, I mean, it's on a lot of coaches. But, yeah, a lot of pressure on Fuller to pick these things up because I think we knew to an extent the offense was going to maybe struggle, especially a little bit earlier because there's so many new quarterback, a lot of new players. You didn't have the dynamic receiver, but we were all hanging our hat that defense was going to be dominant. Nobody could run against that dominating front four that they had. Well, we were all dead wrong on that one.
Well, and the offense hardly had the ball in the first half. Time of possession is skewed heavily towards Boston College. They ran 3 plays, Florida State's offense did in the first quarter. It hadn't touched on that yet. They ran 6 plays through their first 2 drives. BC choked the life out of the ball, and Florida State just could not get off the damn
6
field.
out of 7 on third downs.
And Florida State started 1 out of 6. I forget
out of 9.
That's what they got to 1 out of 9. Just lovely. We go to Tony. He's in Tallahassee, and he was talking to us last year on a very nice night. That was December 2nd, 2023. Better times. So we lived through the good and the bad, though. Tony, welcome to the program. Go ahead.
Well, guys, yes, I've talked to you all a few different times last season, season before, and I'm going to stay consistent. I hate to complain when I do it, but, I've never been a fan of Adam Fuller. I still am not a fan of Adam Fuller. People wanted to tell me last year, oh, see, you're wrong. I'm like, no, I wasn't wrong. He stepped up his defense last year after Jordan Travis went down, knowing that they had to be more aggressive. The guy fails to be aggressive, and I'd say after the same thing. We have now two games this week, back-to-back weeks, 10 days, whatever you want to call it. And you've got running teams, they're going to run. If you even read any of the preseason stuff just in magazines, Boston College strength was their 4 running backs, the way they listed them. Georgia Tech, we knew their running backs and their offensive line. And he fails to stack the box and uses talented corners to go press. Make them beat us press before you back off. If you give up that one big play, it's better than showing up 9 minutes, going downfield 80 yards, shoving it down our throat because they've got the numbers in the box on almost every one of those plays. It's not rocket science to lace them up in the trenches and give those 4 guys a little more help. Maybe you switch to a 4-3 against these run teams. I mean, oh my gosh, play a 4-3? Are you kidding me? I mean, are we back in the 80s and 90s? You don't need your nickel back and dime packages in there trying to tackle 210 and shifty running backs when they're starting 8 yards downfield. And then my comment on the offense is I like DJ. I think, he's solid in areas. But if you look at some of the top views of him in the pocket, they gave him all the corners to roll out. There's nobody there to buy time, and he stands like a statue in there. That's my complaint on him. Brock Glenn, I think, gives us a guy that will run the ball and can get to the corner if need be. They know where to find him. the defense. So they didn't have to do much. They could blitz when they wanted to, and then they kept them right where they had to, and they dropped in coverage. And I think that was my biggest complaint on him there. But with Adam Fuller, the guy doesn't adjust. He doesn't in-game adjust. He doesn't week-to-week adjust. And Sanchucci with Georgia Tech, first-time DC, whole new coaching staff for Boston College. And we're making these guys look like they're coach of the year on defensive game planning. And he can't do this knowing what he's going into. I don't know. Someone needs to smarter than I am explain how he's doing.
Well, it comes down to, Antonio, we appreciate the call. When it gets ugly, the salary gets brought up. It's never brought up when it's a good thing. And I was the first to do it. So I'm not saying anything negatively, Tony. But yeah, it's, with the resources Florida State has, with the compensation packages the players get beyond the coaches, compared to Georgia Tech and Boston College, when you look as you do in these first two games, it's unacceptable. It's plainly unacceptable. I will say this about Adam Fuller. I'm not going to try and defend him in this situation because Florida State looks totally uncoordinated defensively. They look like they have no idea what's coming, which is freaking nuts. But they did run a lot of 4-3 in the first game, especially early on. There was plenty of 4-3. There was 4-3 tonight. He did dial up more pressures that I saw. Saw a couple of blitzes from Shaheem Brown, another defensive back blitz, trying to remember who the hell it was. A couple of linebacker blitzes, run blitzes. They were trying different things. But my number one problem, Gene, with what's going on with this defense, they're late on their communication all the time. There was one play in particular where it was the deflected pass, I think it was, where they nearly came away. Quindarius nearly had a pick. One of your defensive linemen, your interior guys, is standing up at the snap because he's turning around looking for, what's coming. Linebackers communicating late. We saw the Shaheem and Fentrell Cypress communication breakdown on the touchdown pass to the running back where they were open for the fourth freaking time. Notice that I don't know if Fentrell got hurt or not, but he was the one that came out of the game early at corner, and we saw Quindarius and we saw Edwin Joseph out there. But Gene, it's the basics. You got to be able to communicate and be set before the play is run. If you're looking left and right and asking what do we do, I mean, good Lord, it's not like Boston College is running some sort of offense that's never been seen before. This is basics.
Yeah, I mean, Tony brought up some schematic things and change, and I think that's definitely on the table. They could change some stuff up a little bit, but it's exactly what you were saying, Tom, when Tony was talking about the defense. That's what I was thinking, too. I go, the first thing you got to solve these communication issues. It doesn't matter what scheme you run or what you're doing. If your guys are not on the same page and they don't know where to go and they can't communicate with each other, you're going to have breakdowns. You're going to have what you saw tonight. It's going to happen over and over and over again, and that's got to get fixed. And they've had a lot of time to do this with these guys, but for whatever reason, the guys, a lot of transfers on that side of the ball. For whatever reason, the system that Adam Fuller has implemented and practiced with them, it's not translating to the field. They're not getting it. They don't understand it. Maybe there's some communication issues coming from, I don't know what it is, but it is really, really off, and they've had enough time to get this thing straight, and it's not working. So, that other side of the ball, DJ, I mean, I don't think changing the quarterback would make a whole lot of difference, but the question isn't that. The question to me is, do you go ahead and basically just do the youth movement? Because this season, for all intents and purposes, this season's done. Sure, maybe you could scrape together enough and make a crappy bowl game. But that was not the goal of this team. It's not even a consolation prize at this point. This was a team that we were supposed to be in competition to get into the playoffs, or at least be in the conversation come November. This team will not be.
No, it's flat on that side. The defensive side, it looks incompetent at times, but on the offense, it just looks flat. And if you're going to make an argument beyond youth movement for going to the backup, it's maybe they'll play harder for the other kid, but who knows? Premier Youth Theater, thank you very much. Bama dodged a bullet. Justin says, one more. Who wins, this team or the COVID team that lost to Jacksonville State? I think the COVID team had more heart. Ouch. Right now, heart can be questioned, and that sucks.
Yeah, that's a valid point. It could be. It's hard to believe.
Gregory's going to be positive. Tough loss, but I'm sure Coach Norvell will rally the troops and have the guys ready to play and win the next game. Just a few loose ends to tie up. A lot of loose ends to tie up.
A lot of loose ends.
He's been 0-4 before and went 5-3 that season to start turning the program around, but we're going to need some sort of turnaround like that from Mike in the near future. Angela, thanks, Angela. We're too concerned with Duncan Rowe and that piped-in DJ music. It's Taggart time all over again. Yeah, you could hear that on television. It was very, very loud. The audio presentation by Florida State.
Couldn't hear the marching Chiefs. You could sure hear a lot of that stuff.
I will say this: they played as much music in practice last year as they did under Willie's time. It's not about the music; it's the heart, the details, it's the acronym, the climb, because they're not doing any of the crap that's in the acronym, the climbs. SK Simmons, if FSU plays poorly all season, does it affect the ACC exit? Now, the big picture stuff, you got to make your money. They're already in, Gene. You talk about Mike Norvell going all in on a 4th down early in the second half. But Florida State legally is all in here, so it shouldn't, right?
They can't say, "Oh, never mind."
Yeah, right, exactly.
We're good.
I think it's a combination, says Eric, of the snub killing the guy's confidence and certain guys getting paid after holding out for more NIL. Hard to eat when you're not hungry, and then asked to also be leaders. It's a tough one, Gene, because a lot of guys last year were paid handsomely, not the least of which was the quarterback, one of your star defensive ends, one of the guys you got out of the portal to play D tackle. Money wasn't the problem for them last year, but everybody's different.
A lot of these teams, Ohio State, a lot of them have a lot of highly paid players on NIL that didn't affect them. But I think when you get a lot of these transfers in, we see it sometimes it works out and sometimes it blows up in your face, and it seems to be massively blowing up in the face of Florida State right now.
Tony Greco says DJU doesn't make others better. Others make him better. Reason he was a 5-star, he played at Gorman that had 9 D1 players. And Tony remembers how highly he was rated coming out. Denny Alexander, keep it real. We're in trouble. You tell me the solution. Denny, I'll take $10.5 million to try and find a solution. Thank you for the contribution. Not denigrating that.
But isn't that what's frustrating? There is no. We can't. A lot of times when they lose a game and something happens, we can put, if they fix this and this and they make this change here, they got a shot to really improve. This team is so bad. I don't see a solution. There's not one quick fix. There's huge problems across the board.
Deck night on the rocks, Bourbon Reviews. It's time to start practicing real tackling drills, 80s style practice drills. Hit all day and every day. This specific group might need that, Deck night. We appreciate the contribution. Not a whole lot of teams do that. He went to Ireland and he was at the Storehouse, been listening for years, Nole for life since 86, 2004 alumni. Can I get some love? Yeah, you can get some love.
Absolutely.
Get some love right now. Thank you, Deck night. We appreciate that. And again, we appreciate everybody who's contributing to the program tonight. Yeah, basically, Gene, nobody goes to the ground anymore in practice, but maybe this specific team, if there are injuries that are suffered, so be it, because the toughness just ain't there. They got to cultivate it some way, somehow.
Yeah, I really thought about that, the change that they had. I was thinking about that at Georgia Tech, how bad they were tackling in that game. But for some reason, I remember that Georgia Tech did not seem to have a problem tackling, so I think they need to figure out what Georgia Tech is doing in practice, because they're not doing it right.
Again, Deck night, youth movement, Tom. Let's get some snaps and get them ahead of next year. Sit DJ and play Brock. That's going to be one of the big talking points. It's about coaching staff changes and or youth movement. I think that's where we've got a bye week to talk about what is the state of the program and how much of a crisis are we in this moment. Those are the big talking points. We do want to talk about quarterback play with Nicholas, who's waiting, and he's calling in from South Georgia. Nicholas, go ahead. We appreciate your call, and what are your thoughts tonight?
Hey, how y'all doing tonight?
Good
to talk to y'all.
Good to talk
again.
to you.
But anyhow, real briefly, not to be a dead horse, everybody knows running defense is just awful. But according to the quarterback play there, he's a sitting duck. There's no movement on the few rollouts. He's been, decent on that. But other than that, the defense, Georgia Tech, Boston College, they all know he's a sitting duck. He stays in the pocket. And we all used to seeing J-Trav, as soon as the pocket collapses, he takes off, get 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 plus yards. And that's what we used to, because we've seen that the past several years. And DJU, great guy, but hey, he's a sitting duck. He's in concrete back there, and everybody knows it. So it's going to be a long season for him back at quarterback.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I'm here for it. I'm going to watch it. If it gets worse, I'm still going to watch it. But it's going to be a long season. And so anyways, as always, go Noles, and we look forward to the future.
We appreciate it, Nicholas. And yeah, the future is what we're hanging our hat on very quickly this season. Gene, we didn't even get to the 5th of September, and we're talking
This
a
is
little
crazy.
bit about
Yeah,
what
and it starts to ask the question too: does Norvell need an ultra mobile quarterback to have a successful offense?
It's interesting. He's had a variety of quarterback skill sets, and he's been successful everywhere. But it's all predicated on being able to run the football. And right now they're being dared to throw the football, and teams are saying we don't believe that you can, and so we're going to stack against the run. And again, at halftime, Florida State had 8 runs against 21 passes, just 2 runs to the tailbacks in the first half of this football game. And they tried to make a statement in the second half and run the football, and that didn't work very well either. Gene, you had the number last week. I think you might have cited it earlier tonight. But after the opening drive in Dublin, when Florida State ran it effectively, they mixed and matched, and they had their script. They averaged under 2 yards per carry, closer to 1.5 yards per carry, I believe it was.
Yeah, 1.4.
1.4 yards per carry in Dublin.
1.3 tonight, so they dropped 0.1% from last week.
So the whole basis of this year was the offensive line is the best it's been. We're going to run the football, and they can't average 2 yards a carry since the first drive of Dublin. That tells you how screwed.
I mean, when has this coach ever been this bad at running the football? I mean, that's like you said, this is the ethos of Mike Norvell. I mean, we're going to run the football, and he finds ways usually to scheme it up and do it. And we know Portier is good enough. We know a couple of these running backs are good enough. And a lot of these line is back from last year. It's just it's hard to understand. I mean, yes, they're stacking the box, and yes, they know the quarterback can't take off and run, so they can contain a little bit better, but man, I could see a little bit of a drop off, but going from being one of the most anemic run offenses in the country is astounding.
Under a yard and a half. I mean, that's hard to do in this day and age of college football. It really is. One thing that is very hard to do in football season is manage your time. Although maybe you'll have some more free time now with what Florida State's got going on. But we all know home cooked meals are so much better for you. But in football season, you don't always have the time to pull it off. So with HelloFresh handling all the meal planning, shopping, and most of the prep, it's easier than ever to get dinner on the table quickly and without pain. With summer in the rearview mirror and busier days in our near future or in the now's the perfect time to save time and money when it comes to your dinner routine. Skip the meal planning, skip the grocery store lines, cut down on food waste. HelloFresh, convenient doorstep delivery and pre-measured ingredients are coming your way. You can even easily customize your meal. So if you want to swap out a protein or vegetables, you can do that. Gene Williams knows as well as I do the grind of football season. It's nuts. We work on our shows, articles, videos, podcasts, hot boards, maybe, Gene. It's a busy time. You need to take some stress off your plate and put good food on your plate instead. That's where HelloFresh comes in. For free breakfast for life, go to HelloFresh.com/free Warchant. 1 free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life just by going to HelloFresh.com/free Warchant. We appreciate their support tonight. Next up on the program is Dylan in South Carolina. Dylan, thanks for your patience, and go ahead.
Yes, sir. Hey, I just wanted to let you guys know I'm a Florida State fan for life. It doesn't matter, to the losses and the wins, I'm always here. But, I want to let you guys know, I love this team. And apart from that, I think, the offensive line just, lags constantly, which really makes me sad, because, especially with the blue chip recruits that we get, I just don't understand why some people can't live up to expectations, I don't want to trash talk, but I love Armella. Armella is that guy. I love him. But he was a tackle coming out of high school, and now he's a guard. And then Jalen Early, and I imagine that Atkins has placed him in positions for success, which makes sense. But at the same time, why haven't they broken through that lineup at this point, Because, there are 4 stars, they're blue chips, they have talent, they have size. Why haven't them? What is the reason why they haven't got to the point where they are? Because at this point, I don't know. The showings that the O-line has given me, it just doesn't make sense. Can they break through the lineup with it this season?
So I could tell you, Dylan, unfortunately, and Gene, you've been out of practice too. If Julian Armella gave them a reason to play him, he would be in that rotation. Certainly by now too. They rotated a lot of guards in week 0 against Georgia Tech. Keandre was out there starting, but then they brought in Ferguson and Leonard, and they did a rotation there, the 3 guys. Julian just isn't knocking on the door yet. However, Jalen Early is, and Jalen Early did play tonight at right tackle for Florida State. A couple of impressive reps that I noticed. Haven't watched him, every snap, looking at what 54 was doing on the right side. But Jeremiah Byers was not available for this game, Gene. Florida State doesn't disclose exactly why, but he's banged up.
Yeah.
He wasn't available at right tackle, so Robert Scott started this game and played an awful lot of snaps. I think every snap in the first half. And he started the second half. But I saw Jalen Early did get some burn in the second half at right tackle. That's somebody who they feel very good about, and he got some time. It'll be interesting to see if an Armella type or an Andre Otto or a Lucas Simmons, like if you're going to go youth movement, you probably should do it a little bit, sprinkle these guys in on the offensive line as well, because it does seem like to Dylan's call and his point, that they have recruited better on the O-line of late. And so you might as well get these guys some development moving forward. You don't want to stunt their growth. It's a fine line in the trenches, but I think, Gene, they got some guys that are strong enough to handle the burden of playing power level football.
Sure, and I think everything's on the table right now. I mean, there's no position that's safe on this team, whether it's the quarterback or the starting offensive line or anywhere else. I mean, they've been pretty much bad at every position group that, if there's a younger guy that's pushing that player, man, this is the time to give him a serious look. Get him some real reps out there. Maybe Armella, who knows? I mean, it's a little bit, I haven't seen enough of it. Tom, you look a little bit more in the trenches than I did. I just see a guy with some talent, but a lot of inconsistency there. And if you're not showing consistency in practice, you can't every other snap have a bad play and then expect to put him in a game and it's suddenly going to be better. So hopefully that'll kick in for him at some point. He has that talent. He can become a great player, but I don't personally think he's ready yet. Obviously the coaches don't, because he's not very high up on the depth chart, but I do think there are definitely could be some shakeup in personnel on the offensive line here in the coming few games.
Yeah, there's a, let's see, this is the stat, and this is accurate by Oregon Stacker. Good point. 263 to 21 is the rushing yardage disparity tonight. Boston College, 263 rushing yards. Florida State, 21. So if you're calling for changes in the trenches, yeah, you can look at it both ways. Florida State's defensive front, Florida State's offensive line. That is pathetic. Full stop. 263 to 21 on the ground. This is a team in Florida State that is supposed to be built around running the football. That is why, as I've played a few times already, your head coach looks like this. A man on Bourbon Street at 4 a.m. who knows not where he is and what planet he's on. Mike Norvell is a deer in the headlights, and he's got to find some answers soon. A couple more contributions that we have. We appreciate everybody again who's hopped in. We got still over 9,000 people watching us tonight here on Warchant TV. Julian, can't believe how much money and time this program wasted on Farmer and Jackson. Complete waste in there. Wish Fuller knew how to dial up pressure. He was bringing pressures. Didn't matter. Especially when guys don't communicate.
Every time he did, it seemed like a screen call was called to the spot pressure came from. I mean, it's like and I think the commentators mentioned that a couple times, like they knew, and part of that's, again, how do they seem to be able to easily tell what Fuller's going to dial up every play?
Yeah, and last year the pressures were the difference makers. So again, you got to be even-handed. Kalen DeLoach, the pressure he brought against Clemson changed the season, might have saved it, and put Florida State in a position to win the ACC championship. DeLoach was a monster in that regard. The defensive back pressures they called last year worked a lot better. Jerrion Jones, Akeem Dent. Sometimes it's about the players. But, I mean, again, across the board, Gene, this coaching staff felt very, to a man, on the record, off the record, they felt like this team had a chance to do some serious things. They are doing some serious things, but in the opposite direction. Clean streaming. Only at FSU can a coach go 13-0 in a regular season and have 10 players drafted and have the fans call for him to be fired. Okay, so Clean Streaming says there's still plenty of credit. He's got a good credit history, does Mike Norvell. We're not going to go that far. This is Gene, I've never seen anything like this.
It's unfathomable since that 13-0. I mean, it's just all the bad luck too. I mean, from that day you and I were here after the snub, and it seems like everything has gone wrong against Florida State. This program has done a complete 180. But still, we thought the season would be better. It's unbelievable. This is going to go down. If it plays out this way and they win 2 or 3 games, this is one of the biggest flops in the history of college football for a team to go from the penthouse to the outhouse literally overnight.
Daytona guy, love it. Hire T-Spark to
Yes.
rebuild this team. T-Spark's licensed to do just about everything. That would be a new one for him, though. Nice comment there. Steven, FSU and UF going to go after Coach Prime after the season, especially if Colorado wins 6 games, goes to a bowl game. Now, that would be interesting headlines for the media.
No.
Yeah, we'll see. 6 games seems like an awful lot. That defense doesn't look inspired either. Boy, put those two defenses against each other on a football field and see who gives you more points. My goodness. Certainly Florida State has more talent to work with, so it's more embarrassing here at the moment. Jordan in Atlanta. Go ahead, Jordan. You've been waiting for just about 10 minutes. Welcome to the program.
Thank you guys for having me on. My question is, I wanted to get your thoughts on what Florida State needs to do in order to turn the season around and get some wins on the record. And what are your thoughts on Florida State trying to go into the state of Georgia and trying to recruit these high school football players that are going to be going into the class of 2025 for Florida State?
Appreciate it, Jordan. Thank you for the call. The changes that are going to have to be made, I mean, they're soul searching. That's the first thing that needs to happen, Gene, is soul searching to figure out who can they ride with, who's responding well to the adverse moments. What Josh said, I think the earlier caller, Coach Josh up in Long Island, is find the guys that are engaged. Find the guys that are going to be a part of a culture solution rather than guys that might be a little bit more talented but aren't engaged the way they should be. That's the first thing. And then secondly, the recruiting right now is damage control and then maybe a more robust NIL game to help offset some of the disappointment. I don't know. I don't know how you do it right now. Gene, you've covered recruiting longer than me, but I don't know how you work around this particular situation in any footprint, South Georgia or otherwise.
Yeah, there's obviously no easy solution when a program is reeling like Florida State is right now to try to, like you said, it's salvage. You hope you build up enough relationship. You hope you have the NIL and everything there to help retain still and get a pretty good class coming into. Yeah, and you talk about going into Georgia. Well, they got a pretty good team up there, and going into Georgia and taking blue chip recruits out is Florida State's in a real good position to do that right now. So that's a tall order in terms of what Florida State needs to do. I mean, that is the $1 million question. As we said, a lot of things. There's so many things wrong that it's hard to say just fix this and things could turn around.
Yep.
I don't know. I honestly have no idea because nobody saw this coming. Obviously, the coaching staff didn't come it. Nobody's seen it coming that they were going to be this bad this quickly. But I do agree. There's got to be some wholesale changes. That's going to be some difficult choices, Tom, because you got a guy you brought in here, or a transfer. Maybe he's getting a good on NIL deal. But maybe he's not meshing with a culture, and you got to bench him for a redshirt freshman or a sophomore who you want to look to the future. It's gonna be tough in the locker room as well.
Yeah, it's all everything. Like if I was Mike Norvell, I would dread. I'd have my phone next to me, but I'd dread any time it rings because it could be any crisis at any moment right now, whether it's recruiting related, whether it's locker room related, whether it's the coaching staff, the meetings. This is why you get paid the big bucks, though, is to sort through all this crap when it goes bad, and it has gone bad. Jacob, thank you for the contribution. We really appreciate it. Let's see, we got a graphic there for Bjorn.
Bjorn Warner, okay. Try to put some good feelings out there. Let's put some other All-Americans up on the screen.
It's the era of NIL, and so he could be comped. He had 1 year of eligibility left. Bring him back. He looks like he's in great shape. Saw him in Ireland. Michael, thank you very much. Did Norvell have some advice that Randy was a bad hire? I mean, he was brought in to help fortify the defensive staff. That was the thought at the time. We'll see how that conversation goes in the weeks to come. Mark, we rotate too much at every position. This alone will turn away recruits. Let the best players play. Nobody rotates like us. We used 5 running backs today, 21 yards. They did do that again. And they had 2 carries in the first half, Mark. So that's tough too. Douglas, thank you.
You rotate and they get 2 carries. There's not a lot of running backs going to want to play for that.
It's not heady times right now. Douglas, thank you. I suppose that was a super sticker. We appreciate you.
Douglas.
Let's see. Bruiza says he has to go for it. Have you seen that defense? I don't know that he has to go for it in that situation in the third quarter. The defense had shown a pulse at that point, too, and you're coming out of the half. What's funny, Gene, is you're in that situation the next drive and you decide to punt. And if I'm a defender, I'm like, oh, now you trust me? You just told me you don't trust me, but now you do. Okay, at 21, now they got 21 on the board. You believe in me? Okay, sounds good. It's a tough situation. This is the last call for callers. We've got 3 people in the hopper right now. Last call for callers. We appreciate that more than 9,000 of you are still watching with
Well,
us.
they're hanging. I mean,
And,
I'm amazed at this. Well, how late? What do we got here? How late is it now?
we're closing in on 12:30.
About 12:30.
Closing in on 12:30. We are going to take a break in just a moment, but I do want to mention our friends another time here at T-Spark Enterprises. They've been fantastic, and trust us, folks, we're going to get them a win. We're all going to do this together for T-Spark Enterprises. Commercial tenant build-outs. If you're looking to open a second store, a new restaurant, maybe a bar so you can go by yourself to drink and watch Florida State football play, or other commercial space, and you need commercial renovations to get the space designed the way you want it, call T-Spark today. He can do it all. Anything from things like, with your roof, wind damage, missing shingles. You call T-Spark, he'll inspect your roof, but he can do so much more. He's a licensed general contractor. So beyond diagnosing a minor problem, he can help you fix major problems. But have him come to your house today if you've got to worry, because minor problems turn into very, very expensive ones, as Florida State football is learning right now. Seemed like something minor was going on, and now it's getting extremely, and I mean literally, probably very expensive with what Florida State may need to do in the next 6 months to tighten up the ship. Again, South Georgia, North Florida, he's got you covered. T-Spark Enterprises, 850-766-1340, 850-766-1340, tsparkenterprises.com. Before we go to break, he's been waiting a little bit. Pierce in Mulberry. Pierce in Mulberry, go ahead on the Warchant Gameday Call-In Show.
What's up, fellas? Y'all can hear me?
We can hear you loud.
We got you, Pierce.
Yep.
Yes, sir. All right. Man, if I get long-winded, go ahead and cut me off, fellas. But offensively, we can't run the ball. You're not physical enough. You can't protect the quarterback. When you do protect the quarterback, he's making errant throws. When he does make an accurate throw, you can't catch the football. Defensively, bad run fits, can't tackle nobody. Busted coverages on the backside. I've heard it a couple times, and seeing Norvell in the second quarter deer in the headlights. Tom, I know you put it up a couple of times. If you want to, cue it again. But goodness gracious, you're in the second quarter, coach. I mean, it was like everything was falling apart before it even started. There it is. I mean, it's he is like, what is going on? And it's 10 minutes left in the second quarter. It's like y'all said earlier, I think it's youth movement. You need to get some guys that can get separation from DBs. I mean, you saw Kentron on the interception on the bottom of the screen get absolutely yammed up with a very much smaller defensive back. I mean, the youth movement, it's got to come early. I've seen him get a little bit of burn, late in the second half. But he's getting toasted on the outside, and you see that from freshmen a lot. But youth movement's got to happen. If you're gonna keep running DJ out there, it's just gonna blow his confidence even more. And unless if you can find something in this bye week and get back to 500 in these next 2 games. I mean, Memphis is no pushover. California a little bit easier of a task. But honestly, you look at the schedule and you don't see no absolute chalk up W's. And early in the off season, I'm doing a whole bunch of talking to the guys. I mean, we're Florida State fans, we talk a bunch. To Miami fans and Florida fans, and I talked a whole bunch, and I'm eating it right now. But I mean, can y'all give me some just any shade of light besides the special teams unit, which is probably the best unit in the country?
Well, we'll do our best, Pierce. But there's not a whole bunch of light in this moment. There can't be, because as you listed, it's a pretty comprehensive, bleak picture at the moment. Kentron is a bit of a ray of light. He made some plays today in open space, Gene. Contested catch, makes a guy miss. He scores a touchdown. You've been waiting for somebody to show a little something. Doesn't mean he's Keon Coleman, but it's better than we've been looking at the last few weeks. But again, when you have, I'll keep going back to this. I know that there was a competitive moment in the second half as well, but when your splits at halftime are 21-8 pass to run, 21-2 pass to running to the running backs, or runs to the running backs, that is not the identity that Mike Norvell thought this team was going to have. So they're searching. Like that's the look that he had on his face. He is searching. So if there is light, they're going to find it between now and Memphis, but it's not, they don't have the answer right now. They just don't.
Well, that's the thing again. And I agree with Pierce on the youth movement, but, unless Mike Norvell sees some solution that we're not aware of, obviously that's the first opportunity. There's something he thinks he can fundamentally fix for this to be a decent team. They're never going to be a great team. They're not even going to be a good team probably, but maybe they scratch out 7 wins. If he sees a path to do that, he'll go ahead and do it, and I'm fine with that. But we don't see that from our perspective. I think you did a good job of listing a lot of the inefficiencies and liabilities on this team right now, and there's a lot of them. So that's why it's hard to come up with what one thing he can do to fix this thing. So yeah, it's and I was glancing at the schedule while I was talking to it. And I'm trying to find wins. There's you got maybe 2 on there that you think, okay, even the way this team is playing though, I mean,
yeah.
That's what's so scary about this. This could be like an epically bad season. I mean, on one of the worst ever. The way this looks right now, I don't think it's going to happen. There's still talent on this team, but man, they've shown me nothing through 2 games.
They're going to have to be constructed differently, schematically over the next couple of weeks, and they've got a bye week to sort it out. But man, this is not a pleasant place to be if you're a coach or a player in that building over the next couple of weeks. Or certainly we're having a go, and we're media too. But yeah, Gene, you and I, wear our Nole heart on our sleeve, and we're just like y'all out there here watching on Warchant TV or listening on the pod. Tough times. This is going to be a long wait, but I think also there might be some of you out there who feel like, let me just watch some other college football for a weekend. Let me take a little break, and then we're going to come back to it, and we'll see what we have for Memphis. And I understand that sentiment too. Dante and Rodney, you guys are in the queue right now. You're the last 2 callers tonight. We'll come to you in just a little bit. Noel 5233, thank you very much for the contribution. So what's next? I'd love to hear what you guys think about how to move forward. The youth movement, these are some of the things we've talked about. Who are the bright spots? What areas do we look to the younger guys? What starters make sense? Should Mike keep going so hard at the portal? A lot of questions there, Noel, and we appreciate your contribution. I think, unfortunately, the portal is something that you have to entertain again this offseason. But I think before you do that, Gene, this is the part of the balancing act. If you go youth movement, you have a better idea of what you have to hit in the portal. If you don't allow these kids to play before the season's over, then they're going to get passed over without the exposure and the chance to develop. You've got to play these young guys a little bit more to understand where your holes are. There are a lot of holes to fill, clearly. But you got to give these kids a chance to account for themselves a little bit, I think.
No, I think that's a great point. Again, you get to that point where you figure the season is effectively lost, at least for what you want to do. If you put yourself in that position, you got some promising young players. They're a little rough around the edges, but nothing will get them going better than real game action. So a player that might be a little rusty in game 4 or 5, by game 10, he's showing you something. Okay, this is a guy we can count on next year. Well, that solves a transfer portal potential puzzle there. Okay, we don't need another, whatever it is, another cornerback, another left tackle, whatever the case is, if you found a younger player to fill that role. So I like that game plan. But again, unless Mike Norvell really thinks there's something he can do to salvage this season, we don't see it. Maybe he does, and I hope he does, but I have my doubts right now.
There's no reason not to doubt a little bit right now. We are taking our final break. We'll be right back on the Warchant Gameday Postgame Call-In Show, built by T-Spark Enterprises. We'll be back at 12:34 Eastern Time, just after these words. Go ahead.
Greatness is built through passion, perseverance, and an unyielding commitment to one's trade. It starts with dedication and the relentless pursuit of perfection. The early mornings, the late evenings, the sacrifices made, all for that one moment. of knocking it out of the park. On every job we do. T-Spark. We conquer all peaks.
We're back on the Warchant Postgame call-in show built by T-Spark Enterprises. We do want to bring you this particular message because one of our commenters brought it up. Steve Matthews is one of our favorites in the Warchant family. He lives out in the Chicago area. We better take advantage of the 4-hour premium bar in that dump of a town, South Bend. It's 2018 all over again. This is so disappointing. That is true, Steve. It does feel like the trip out to South Bend resembles one with Willie Taggart at the helm for Florida State. It seems like it's shaping up that way. Hopefully it's not 12 degrees like it was 6 years ago in the dump of a town, South Bend. But if you are interested in an excellent trip, excellent opportunity to go to Chicago, check out some beautiful sights and sounds in one of the nation's greatest cities, and then hop on a bus with us to go from Chicago over to South Bend, spiritexpress.com is the place that you want to go. Again, you will have a charter bus service with beers and seltzers and libations for you on the drive from Chicago to South Bend. You will arrive at a premium open bar, all-inclusive, awesome food menu, heated tailgate, heated tents. It's a great day out in South Bend because they have folks like Spirit Express putting together the turnkey experience that you want in order to just enjoy the game. You show up to Chicago, they got you. They'll get you there, they'll get you back, and they'll get you fed, and they'll make sure that you are enjoying some libations along the way. SpiritExpress.com. If you aren't going to be in Chicago, but you are going to be in South Bend, they also have tailgate-only ticket packages. Use promo code WARCHANT for early bird savings. Those early bird savings expire today, Tuesday, September 3rd, because we are into Tuesday now on the East Coast, Gene, as we're wrapping up here. But again, SpiritExpress.com for that experience. We'll have some Warchant staff out there, including myself, looking forward to that trip. I thought that trip was going to be about playoff berths, at large bids, Gene, because that game could have been important for a nice poker chip in Florida State's favor had they been 2-0 in this circumstance, or at least 1-1 with their goals in front of them. But now, who the hell knows who the starting 11 is going to be on offense and defense for Notre Dame? This is that's a long way away from right now.
But, Tom, you got heated tents, and that's very important to Notre Dame in November. So, that's worth the price of admission right there. Now, looking at some of these games, the prospects of playing Miami and Clemson and, Notre Dame right now, it's pretty scary the way this team has played. If a team like Boston College is taking you to the woodshed, what are those teams going to do? Good thing is there's a long way to those games are away, so there's a lot of work to be done. Maybe they can, put something together, make this team semi-competent.
Yeah. It's Notre Dame won't stop running the football either. They'll just keep doing it. We watched that game against A&M this weekend. That doesn't match up well with what Florida. Nothing really does right now with what Florida State does. Our penultimate caller tonight, we go to Alabama to talk to Dante in Alabama. It's been a long time since we talked to you, Dante, but welcome to the program.
Hello, gentlemen. It has been a while, and it's funny. I hope to call and offer some levity. I'm a former player, so I have a different perspective about a lot of this than other people. So first of all, when I called in years ago, it was after we had beat North Carolina, and I said then, Mike Norvell is the guy. And I still think Mike Norvell is the guy. I had the privilege of being a part of the 93 National Championship celebration last October, and one of my teammates, before he introduced Mike Norvell, he said, this guy is the guy that's going to bring us back. He's a lot like Coach Bowden, and he will get it figured out. So I still believe in that. But having said that, this is a totally different landscape of football that we're talking about. It's so different than anything we've ever encountered. So I think as a general fan, we're thinking, okay, if we could get a kid from Buffalo and he's an All-American and a first-round draft choice, and this unknown kid from Louisville that's a quarterback, we can just plug and play. And that's unfortunately just not how it works. Sometimes you miss, sometimes you get it right. One thing that I did say during that celebration was we will not realize or accept how great Jordan was until he's gone. So Norvell can really, in his mind, have his best offensive line. But Jordan just made up for a lot of errors in an inadequate line. The kid was special. So you factor that in, and then you say, okay, in the portal, he's been great. But sometimes you may miss. So far, we're 2 games in, it looks like he's missed on some. But we'll see. Now, having said that, with the changing landscape, what I hope will happen is, you know, some of the Battles End and some of these guys, you know, they're getting paid now, so let's live up to a contract. If you don't do what you're supposed to, let's start taking money back.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's competition. That's what should happen. So, you know, we're going to invest in you, but if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, we should be able to take money back. And then you will see some other things change, because now they're not just resting on that I'm making $500 a year or whatever. But long story short, I still believe in Norvell. He will get it figured out. May not be this year, unfortunately, because there were expectations, and we thought we were going to be plug and play, and we hear names from Georgia, names from Alabama, and names from LSU. And you also have to realize, if those guys were that good, they'd still be there.
Yep.
So sometimes, you know, you have to balance your excitement and be like, okay, this guy didn't get on the field in Georgia. How good is he? You know, and I see the excitement. He's the son of one of my teammates, and I'm not trying to downgrade him, but I'm just saying it is what it is sometimes, and that if they were that good at where they were, they would still be there. So they're transferring for a reason, and we've hit on most, but it looks like we might have missed this time. But at the end of the day, I still think Norvell's the guy, and he will get it right.
Well, we appreciate the call, and as always, go Noles, Dante.
Yeah.
Glad you got to celebrate that 30th anniversary last year.
That was quite the team.
It is trying to resemble anything like that right now, but they're having a hard time. I think part of it, Dante, is, you know, and Gene, you'd agree with me here, I'm sure, that, you know, when you get a Jermaine Johnson from Georgia and he hits and he becomes a first-round pick, you think that everybody is going to be like that. You know, when you hit Jared Verse from Albany and he turns into a first-round pick, you think that everybody is going to turn into something like that. And you're right, sometimes there will be misses. It's an interesting calculation to me, though, Gene, and Bryce puts it here. Quick take. And thank you for the contribution, Bryce. If a head coach picks up a quarterback from the portal that's known for being subpar and doesn't have any known chemistry with the teammates, do you pull that quarterback knowing all the burnt NIL money that'll go out the window, or keep him in? You know, that's also part of it here. That's
an NFL analogy a lot of times too. A lot of times they, you know, when they get a high draft pick or they pay a guy a big contract, even though he's underperforming, there might be another player do better. A lot of times there's pressure because you don't want to look bad.
Yep.
By bringing a guy in and paying him a bunch of money and then benching him as soon as he starts playing like crap.
Yep.
It's a new dynamic, you know, and Dante mentioned it, it's a whole different landscape than back when he played. And yeah, we're dealing with very different things. You can't take the NIL money back, but I'll tell you one thing that's happening with these guys is a lot of these NIL guys that are transfers in had NFL aspirations.
Yes.
As we talked about the scouts earlier, the money is being taken back from them. Not right now.
Yeah.
But their future value, because trust me, the scouts are looking at you getting blown off the line on either line right now. If BC's blowing you off the line, what's the NFL going to do to you? They don't want to pay you a lot of money for that.
No, you're taking money out of your own pocket, in short. Yeah, no doubt. And the thing is, the way, and if you're asking at home right now, you're saying, well, why can't they take money back? Well,
they have contracts.
There are contracts, and inducements, pay for play is not allowed. I know. Yep. You're laughing out there too. But that's the rule. And what it does is it hamstrings the NIL collectives to a point where you can't have performance incentives. They cannot exist. Pay for play cannot, performance pay cannot exist. The NCAA needs to take a look at that. It's already always been pay for play, going back to boosters with handshakes that were $1,000 at a time. So I think, Gene, personally, not to get into a diatribe about the NCAA because there's a lot there, but if you take away that provision and you allow for performance to dictate pay, I think you'd see a greater level of consistency. And I think that's to what Dante's point is trying to reach.
Yeah, but I think it's not the NCAA. I think we're looking down the road for employees, collective bargaining, revenue sharing. Eventually it's going to all go to that. And at that point, you can write those kind of contracts with the incentives and everything else in there. So, yeah, that's down the road. Unfortunately, this is the hand FSU and a lot of teams have been dealt right now. And right now, FSU got the short hand. I think he made a point. You expect to plug and play, and it's worked really well the last couple of years for Mike Norvell.
Yep.
And man, you're putting everything as a square, hole in a round peg right now. You're trying to do that over and over, and nothing's fitting.
Yep, agreed. We're going to rapid fire some of these. We don't mean to lessen your contributions, but there's just so many of you who contribute to us on Warchant TV. We want to give you all a thank you. Jan says, tough first two opponents with tricky eye discipline offenses. Fuller's never handled them well. Couple that with inexperience, and boom. No excuse for Norvell in his decision-making. Get a W and get some mo. Thank you, Jan. Yeah, I hated to see that this offense was the second one after Florida State played so poorly against Georgia Tech, but it's still Boston freaking College, So at the end of the day,
if you control the line of scrimmage, it's only going to matter so much.
Yep,
they're going to get you a few times. You dominate the line of scrimmage, it really doesn't matter.
John, Conrad, thank you all so much. You're parting with your own money to help support us, and it makes a difference. And so thank you very much to John and Conrad. Another John. DJ looks like a quarterback who has been beat down over the last years and mentally gone. Our defense, obviously overrated at stopping the run. Yeah, 263 to 21.
John.
263 to 21 on the ground. Has practice shown that DJU has head and shoulders above Brock and Luke, and could it lend to hesitancy in making a move? I think he's been the best quarterback the days I've seen. Brock has flashes. Luke's not ready. That's my personal take. But, I mean, at some point here, it won't matter. If you continue to look this lousy, it won't matter. They will move on because Brock has more years of eligibility than DJU does, Gene.
And I'll say he's quicker. He's a little quicker, too, so maybe that helps right now.
Alex, they kicked us out of our seats for the club level. They play loud, terrible music after every play. All to watch Norvell's average game management skills. Fraud. All right, Alex. I know.
Sorry you got kicked out of the club.
Yeah, it's a rough go. Morgan, a bright spot I saw tonight was Kentron. Could be a big impact player for the offense this year. He has a pulse. We have somebody with a pulse.
He actually fought off a player, broke a tackle, and made a play. I mean, that's pretty much almost the first one we've seen all season.
Yep. Black Spade Enterprises. As a Canes fan, you guys have to understand, you guys were blessed with Bowden, then Fisher. It's awfully hard to catch lightning in a bottle again. Well, they did with 13-0 last year, Spade. I mean, that's the deal, man. So
10 wins the season before. Going back to the call from Dante earlier, I still can't believe Norvell has done too many good things to think he's a bad coach. I mean, I think he's whatever reason he miscalculated a lot of things. He brought in transfers that didn't fit in, whatever the deal is, and I think he will make changes if he has to in the offseason with the staff. I still ultimately believe he's a pretty good coach. Obviously, we're not seeing it right now, though.
Frank, we appreciate it. Hope all is well in Boston. C Black, what's the point of rolling DJ out there after going 0-2? Season's over. He won't be here next year. You're going to hear a lot of that. C Black, we appreciate your contribution. Dylan, I feel it's a reason beyond Norvell that DJ is still in. When last year we ran the Wildcat, things didn't work. When things didn't work and had a young quarterback who should be starting the next game, just seems off, but it might be just me. We'll see. Again, the decisions Mike Norvell makes, even the words he chooses over the next couple of weeks are going to be fascinating. His press conference is available right now on Warchant TV. There's a group press conference with 3 defensive players. Otherwise, I think that's all we got tonight. It's Cam, Riley, Kentron. So we did have an offensive representative, and DJ Lundy, who also left the game earlier with an injury. Interesting. That's available all right now at Warchant TV. But we have been waiting for our final caller of this evening, and it's Rodney in Jacksonville who's been patient. And Rodney, we appreciate your patience and welcome to the show. You're going to close it out for us, so go ahead.
Hey guys, how are you guys doing this evening?
We're hanging in there, man.
Yeah,
how are you?
Man, well, I'm frustrated just as much as you guys. I left the game tonight. Just want to kind of go quickly, real down history lane, real quick in the Norvell era. When Norvell got here, he was in that figuring out stage, and I think tide kind of turned because I was at that game. It was the second half of the Syracuse game when the players came out of the second half and they didn't quit. The season turned around after they started 0-4. And the thing that Norvell at that time was looking for leadership. He found that leadership in his quarterback. And the thing is Jordan Travis had an it factor. And the it factor is that even though he was still developing in his throwing game, but he could run. And he was a threat on the run. And Norvell was still installing his offense and finding the tailback situation. And those pieces started coming together. And so what you're seeing here is, in fact, the last 2 years, we've had some very solid play from Jordan Travis. And with that being said, we've also had some great leadership from him. And because he was such a threat on the run, other teams couldn't, they had to account for him. Even though there was a running back that we had with Trey Benson and a couple of other guys that were available and were great too. But they had to account for Jordan Travis. But then his throwing game became so much better. Then all of a sudden you got Keon Coleman, you got, Johnny Wilson on the outside. Now you got an incredible offense, and Norvell can just call whatever he wants and be more risky on fourth downs. And, so what's missing on the offensive side is the fact that all those pieces are gone. But before all that happened, Norvell was in the figuring out stage, and he figured it out to finally get there and get what he needed. Now all those things are gone, and he's now starting back over in the figuring out stage. And here we are, 2 games in, and you've lost some leadership and some talent that brought some good skill and performance on the field. Whereas guys right now are not performing on the field. They're making mistakes, they're missing balls. And the thing about DJ is that the arm is there, but he doesn't bring that threat. We only got a single threat as that tailback, and they're keying on that because we don't have any receivers, even though we've got some great catches here tonight. But some guys haven't established themselves on film to show that they're going to be a threat. So it's kind of easy to stack that box and stop the run, and that's what they're doing. And then the flip side, on the defensive side, we don't have any leadership there. Jared Burks was great for 2 years. He brought the wood on that side, and we've had some other couple guys defensively that brought some leadership that were phenomenal. So when you look at this team that we have, they lost all of that, and then they had a spring to bring in the transfer guys, just like Dante was saying earlier. But Norvell's in this figuring out stage. But we have no leadership on either side of the ball, and nobody's taking off because there's no emotion, and the crowd is searching for it. You can see in the stands tonight, they're just waiting for someone to take over and become their favorite. And the fans do not have a favorite yet. They're kind of hoping. And I think Norvell, when he gets to this point, he's reaching. And the game that cost us the turning point was, I think, in the second half when we had 4th down and 5, and we were in our own territory. He clearly should have punted, but he put so much pressure on a struggling offense that if you wanted to get any kind of hope in life and confidence, we should have punted and see if our defense could hold him. So anyway, I just think leadership is missing on both sides, and I think Norvell's in.
Yep. No, agreed, Rodney. We appreciate the call. You could stack it up. I mean, he listed it out, Gene, but you just don't have players on offense like you did last year. And Norvell's trying to figure out the puzzle. He thought he had it figured out. That's the issue. There is no, he entered the season searching for something. He thought he had it down, and he was wrong. And now we're hurt. We're all
emphatic about it. I mean, it wasn't even like, oh, this might be a pretty good team. So I like what I'm seeing. No, he was emphatic. And as practices went on, he got more and more confident.
Yep.
Which is why this is all the more surprising. That last caller too, I agree. I think the biggest thing that just is absolutely lacking fundamentally is leadership. There's nothing there. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't know what goes on with DJ. Maybe he's just a transfer that came in. He's kind of aloof. I don't know. And maybe the guys, maybe you need to make a change just because maybe, like you said, Tom, maybe they'll play harder for Brock. I don't know. I don't think they can play any worse for him. But yeah, that's a big problem when you don't have leadership. You're 2 games into the season. It's hard to imagine guys are going to suddenly emerge there.
The thing about leadership is you know it when you see it, and you can also feel it when you don't have it. And I think the best part of Rodney's call was the crowd is looking for somebody, and so is Mike. That 4th down call is about hope. And it's not about schematics. It's not about, that's about, you're hoping something is going to happen. And that's desperation.
Oh, it did.
Yeah. Oh, it did. Yeah. Going the other way, inside your goal to go, whatever it was. That's desperation defined. John, thank you very much. Why are we seeing KJ Sampson on 1st and goal? Are Daryl and Josh not competent enough to stuff the gut? I've got to go back and take a look at the drive because it could have been one of those.
Yeah, it was one of those. One at the end, he was in there, but it was one play, and there's some guy might have been banged up. I don't know.
Yep. Deck Night for like 84 contributions. We really are grateful for as many. Has to adapt to the new clock rules. 1 possession against Georgia Tech in the 4th quarter, not any better against Boston College. Well, going 3 and out doesn't help. I mean, well, 3
and out, they convert every 3rd down. When the other team does that, that's going to add up in any clock format.
Yes, exactly. You got to get off the field on that's not Norvell's clock management if Adam Fuller's group can't get off that freaking field. And we've been good tonight, Gene, with the swearing. We've been good. I almost broke it there. Kwame, final contribution. Mike should have waited for Cam Ward. That's going to be, unfortunately, Z-Chan back again. Tonight's crown goes to no one. Absolutely no one. Thank you, official DMD of Warchant TV. Gene, you'll have the Pro Football Focus grades. A lot of bad ones coming.
Oh, my gosh. It might be the worst ever.
Yeah, I know that.
I'm going to have to pull up that Jacksonville State one from a few years ago and compare because it's going to be right in line, I'm sure.
I know that last week's for Georgia Tech was a 3 or 4 year low. This has to be worse. It just, I agree with you. It has to be. But those will be available to you if you want to see just how bad it got for certain players, or if you thought maybe, well, this guy might have been okay. That's always the cool part of why looking at Pro Football Focus. Also, the snap count distribution will be there. We talked about that a lot leading up to the game. Like guys like Lola Haya played more. Blake Nicholson played more. Obviously, Omar Graham was not available. Take a look at that linebacker shuffle. Look at the secondary, too. You'll see Edwin Joseph, Quindarius Jones, KJ Kirkland was out there for a little bit, too. Interesting choices being made. Perhaps Mike Norvell already is changing the guard. But that's what's coming up on warchant.com. You can find, obviously, Corey's column from the game, Irish 321, probably an emergency 321 is being posted here soon. The Warchant rap will be available on this channel. Don't ever see DJ going to press the button. Culture strong with Brock. Well, we'll see, Dylan. Thank you very much. Another last-second contribution. But all those things are available.
They want us to stay here all night, Tom. They want us to stay here till the sun comes up.
You know what? If I was hate watching, that's exactly what I do. I'd keep.
I would do more about. I'm like I need some coffee or something, man, because it's been a long day.
It has been one of those, and so we appreciate again everybody out there to T-Spark Enterprises. We're going to get you a win on this post-game show. I know it's coming. I can feel it. I just couldn't tell you when. But this has been the Warchant Gameday Postgame Call-In Show. Director Ben Spicer behind the scenes always does a great job. Our top phone screening ace in Terry, he nailed it tonight. He even got Scoot's name right. I called him Scott, so thank you, Terry. Sorry about that. Hope you're enjoying some kind of scotch to get your work week started.
He's got to go to. He's got his own real job first thing in the morning too tomorrow. So that's another thing that sucks about having a game on Monday night.
Yeah, we waited all week for this. Well, we get a bit of a break. We'll have a bye week, and then after Memphis around 3-4 o'clock. 2 Saturdays from now, we'll be signing back on here. Hit the like button underneath the video, not for the result, but for the content. We've got a lot of great content here. Subscribe to Warchant TV. It's totally free. Even if you hate watching, there's a lot to watch here on Warchant TV coming up. So that's it for us tonight. Thank you to everybody who contributed, everybody who donated their own money. It helps us do a lot of things here. Thank you very much. For Gene, I am Tom. This has been the Warchant Gameday Postgame Call-In Show, built by T-Spark Enterprises. Good night, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Good night.